It's 2 weeks into the new season or so. We still haven't played a ranked game. So my current rank is actually unranked. But it feels like the season is starting for us about now. After the end of last season, of course, I was so tired from playing, sort of like so intensely to reach champion that I very much stopped and I really needed to take a break. And then that sort of continued because I was already within 3 or 4 days sick to death of valkyries. I'm sick to death of people calling Ingrid Wingrid. For 2 weeks it's just been a load of rubbish really. I haven't really been enjoying the game. I've just been getting coins every now and then. I haven't even really been trying to max out my coins. I've just been trying to get a few coins and then sort of just leave it at that. It's become a bit of a chore. But in the last 2 or 3 days, I've actually been feeling really optimistic. I received my reward from Noah, the 40 card packs. The actual mythics in the card packs, not so great. But in terms of essence, I've spent most of it, but I've still got 1,700. But it actually really padded out our mythics quite a bit, allowed us to fill out a few decks that we were still missing stuff for. I'm just going to quickly. We're still missing a lot. I absolutely refuse to get Ingrid unless I have to. We still have 6 weeks of this season to go. I don't feel any real pressure. I want to play whatever I want to play. I want to see if I can get to champion with the decks that I want to get to champion with, and that I think I'll learn the most from trying to get to champion with. I really don't want to play Valkyries unless I have to. So our blue is quite low, but our red, yellow, and green is all looking good. Orange is hopeless, and purple is just, my word, like all the good ones. Vixen, Eidolon, Daikaiju, Celestial Dragon, perfect grade. Our purple is a sorry sight, and our orange is pretty bad as well. We're missing Cushiel, Lavish Proxy, Lamp of Wonders. Things that you don't necessarily need, but they really do make a difference, especially at the highest levels. I don't want to go in with a crappy, half-decent deck or a half-baked deck. I want to go in with a proper, full-fledged deck. But yeah, it just allowed us to pick and choose, allowed us to fill out a couple of things. So for the first time in 2 weeks, I'm actually optimistic about this season. I'm still sick to death of Valkyries. There's still stuff that I don't want to do. I'm not really sure if I'm going to jump into ranked tonight. I am supposed to be asleep, but I tried to go to bed and then I just got carried away. Like I said, I've gone really optimistic. It doesn't feel quite as oppressive as it was. It doesn't feel quite as ridiculous as it was. It's not quite so bad. I sort of see light at the end of the rainbow. Because I could fill out a few of these decks, especially Turbo Kraken, or the Kraken, which is what I like to call it. Excuse me. But yeah, I actually really like this deck. This is the deck that I sort of picked. And even before I got the Kraken, I was playing it in casuals, and we ended up with a record of like 18-2 or something. Something, like extremely ridiculously good. But it's casual, so you don't really know. And we were missing key cards that I now managed to purchase, like the Kraken, Sea Lord's Trident. The necklace as well. I was missing this. It's not really necessary, but I thought if you're going to go, you might as well try and go as far as possible. I actually regret this a little bit now. I should have purchased Bob, not the necklace. But that's what life is, isn't it? It's just a learning experience. But I actually think the matchup into Valkyries isn't terrible for the Kraken. I actually really like it. Also, I kind of went through Cruel TK. I'm not exactly sure where we're going with the deck still, but I've got a couple of different directions. One of the best things about this season compared to last season is last season our collection was really thin, and so was our skill set. We were almost like a one-trick pony. It was basically yellow-green control. That was it. That's all we could play. We've actually played quite a bit of aggro now. We've played quite a bit of mid-range, Disc of Sakardia. We've played a little bit of all of the paths. We're slightly more well-rounded than we used to be. This season, we really can go in a lot more directions than we could before. So in the end, I just decided that I couldn't sleep. There are just too many ideas sort of going around my head. So I'm just going to like throw it all out there, talk about every single deck, get it out. I'm not going to play all of them. I'm definitely not going to play all of them in ranked. I'm not sure if I should play ranks right now because I feel so impatient. Like I want to get to champion just so that I can then play a lot of these decks in ranked, which is stupid, right? But of course I won't go through these two. They're archived. They're archived for a reason. Storm and Vanquish. This is the Valkyrie deck. This is the Fawn. You know, there are slightly different versions, but for all the great things that Laser has done, creating this deck list is not one of them. Storm and Vanquish. Tail's End is what Aneric got to champion with this season. It's basically the red-blue disadvantage dot deck. So yeah, I mean stuff like Honed Edge. This one doesn't have it, but also stuff like God's Blood. The whole point is, instead of card draw, everything is just designed to smash you straight away. So if it doesn't beat you immediately, it will lose. But it's got such a strong early game, it can just flatten you. You know, if you start badly, this doesn't even need to start that well. Like, it doesn't need it's perfect, because there are so many sort of low-end hands that they get that get them started. So if you start badly, they will start and then they just will run over you. This is the version that Tech's playing. Nerix is more conservative, sort of like the players themselves. Tech has instead gone for, you know, he's gone full transfusion, honed edge. Just everything, anything he can use to run over you straight away. That's what he's gone for. I've got a 5 and 2. That's probably not. Like, these are all records in casual, so I don't know how reliable they're going to be. You know, 6 and 1, but you know, 4 of that is against the AI, so don't know what to expect. But this is good. Madka has played it in Champion. Kish created the deck in the first place and deliberately tried to make an aggro disc deck that was capable of getting to Champion. In another world, this would be the deck that I would try and take to Champion, because it's definitely possible to get to Champion with it. But my experience of Disc is still not quite sufficient. I don't quite feel very comfortable playing Disc. I couldn't play Disc for the rest of the season, if you know what I mean. I'm not quite at that level. This is Red Orange, the Ejectee Red Orange that he plays on stream. I follow the games every now and then. I'm not very good with Red Orange. This is one of the more annoying weaknesses that I seem to have, but my my win rate with Red Orange decks is very, very poor, and there's nothing amazingly, you know, out of line with this deck. You know, there are no extraneous variables here. The deck is a very sort of standard. It's just personal preferences, a lot of these cards. Some of them, depend on the player, may appear slightly better or worse. But, you know, this is pretty much what Ejectee is climbing to Champion with. I don't know if Ejectee's made it to Champion yet. He will make it to Champion eventually. Obviously. I mean, it's Ejectee, isn't it? So, he's currently at Mithril 7. Anyway, so yeah, we'll just keep going through. Amber Control. This is pretty much, you know, what we finished season 2 with. This is what got us into Champion, and 25 and 4 probably isn't a surprise. Again, it's in casuals though, so we already know it's good for casuals. We know it's good for ranked. It's more than good enough. I've made very, very few changes. The only difference is, as I said, our collection has rounded out a bit. Last time, DOS does not own Serapis, we had to use Twin Una instead. But this is just straight Amber Control. This is the way that NKL built the deck, straight up. It's net decked, basically. This is exactly what he wanted. I'm still not that big a fan of Serapis. I think he's good in aggro matchups, but I don't think he's that good in control matchups. Big Red. This is what Silver Arrow, I think it's Silver Arrow, is playing in the mythgard for Humanity, Cards for Humanity tournament run by 98.3. So I've only played it once, but it's sort of exciting. One of the most exciting things, though, is not actually Big Red itself, is that it is an aggro deck. And as I said, my skill set is rounding out. Last season, the idea of actually trying to create my own deck was way out there. Like, there was no chance. I didn't even know where to begin. The most I did was just take what other people had built and then try tuning it, you know, messing around. But, you know, I was basically just a kid in the playground, and I was just trying to see what happens if you like pushed certain shaped blocks into certain holes. This time I actually built the climbing frame. So it's not so much Big Red that I'm excited about, is that I actually tried to make my own version of Mono Red. In fact, it goes a lot further than that. Made me laugh, and single-minded are pretty much my versions. And single-minded actually seems to work. When I get to it, we'll talk about it. I don't know why it's working. I'm enjoying playing it. It's getting me coins really, really quickly. We'll quickly, as you can see, Cerberus for Chimera. Still don't have Chimera. Um, that one Dashing Ringmaster for a single Crimson Pact. Although I actually have 3 copies now, so I could just take out a Dashing Ringmaster, I suppose. But I quite like having a single Dashing Ringmaster. There's a surprising amount in this list that doesn't have Rush. And considering that Mono Red is very much go fast, go face, that's a little bit of a surprise. I'm not sure. I think 2 Crimson Pact and 2 Extract Life is sort of enough for spot removal health. I think that's okay. We'll see though. We might have to tamper with it a little bit. I'm not sure how viable it is, but like I said, Silver Arrow is taking us to top 8 in a tournament. So it's good. I don't know if it's good for ranked or if it's good for tournament. And he just sort of judged the decks coming in and then built this specifically to counter them or not. But we're certainly going to give it a good try. This is a 2-facker, the same, top 8 in the tournament, 2-fackers deck. 1 Vodnik Informant. I'm actually really curious about this card. I think 1-3 means that it essentially trades with an awful lot of 1 and 2 drops. And it trades with quite a few of them positively as well. I'm definitely curious. I want to see what happens. Mostly because it's 2-fackers deck though. If someone else had posted this deck, I'm not sure if I'd have picked it up. But I've been very open about the fact that 2-facker is a player that is just so great. Like, he's so much better than us. And taking a 2-facker deck and actually trying to learn it is one way of trying to bridge that gap a little bit. So, even looking at the deck right now, I don't understand certain choices in it. Like, Vodnik Informant, I don't understand the specific choices because the only way I can describe it is, well, I would like to try that card out. But 2-facker took this into a tournament and made it to top 8. He's got a definite reason to use it. It's not an experiment. He's actually using it. Oh, I'm so curious about this deck. I think I'm really going to get so much from these two. 2 really curious decks that are way out of my wheelhouse. But I think I'll learn a lot from. This is my own attempt at red. I haven't even played it yet. I just like the fact that I tried, if you know what I mean. I actually tried to make my own... Wow, have I actually got a cough? I'm not getting the repeated coughing that you're supposed to get with corona though. Okay, I guess my throat's just dry. I've been trying to sleep anyway. Yeah, and I actually think it's better. I would think it's better. I made it deliberately to try and be the best mono red that I could build. So we're gonna see. It's gonna be another learning experience. But looking at the lists, it looks weak. It looks extremely weak to Thunderclap and Magnus, which is terrible in this sort of Valkyrie mono blue meta. But I actually think it's pretty interesting. I don't know. It might be really good. It might be surprisingly good. This is Lords of the Rings, Lasers deck. There are 3 laser decks here. It says something about Laser really, that we're talking about 3 premium decks, and he's pretty much been responsible. We don't have Singing Serpents, either Veil Edition or one of the originals. This is mostly here because it was one of the choices last season when we were trying to get to champion, and in the end I went with NKL's yellow-red control instead of Laser's deck. But really, we should be playing them both. I should be assessing, was it actually the right decision to go for NKL's deck? Would it have been possible to make it to champion with this deck? Do I think it's worse or better than NKL's deck, and why? It would be really helpful. I don't understand this single Venom Fang. That eludes me. I really don't understand why there's just 1 copy of Venom Fang in this deck. What's that about? I'm sure Lazy had a reason. Mono Red is back. So this is Darling Wolves, I think. Yeah, it's Mono Red. People are enjoying Mono Red. I'm not quite as enthusiastic about this Mono Red deck. It sort of reminds me a lot of Rainbow Rush Horror Edition, Red Blue, where there was very much a sort of disadvantaged deck vibe. This seems like a worse version of that. I don't really like it. But, you know, it was on mythgard Hub. I threw it in there. My Kraken. Should we just talk about the actual Kraken and get back to it? I can't even remember what my Kraken has in it. Um, so I've already talked about this. The fact that I actually managed to get some of the mythics that I so desperately needed to make this deck properly. We've got Horn over Bob, because I don't own Bob, and Cerberus over Chimera. I prefer... I actually prefer Cerberus over Chimera, even though I don't own Chimera, so it doesn't bother me that much. But Chimera's a worse card, but because it only takes 2 red gems, I would prefer having Chimera in the deck, even though I think Cerberus is better. Hopefully this is definitely one of the decks that I'm going to try to get to champion with. It's probably the deck that I'm going to try and get to champion with, because it would be an achievement. You know, Fires of Creation is something new to learn. Reconstruct is a new power to learn. There's so much new in this deck, and we've played quite a lot of it. It's not representative, of course, because I pretty much just I played it without the Kraken because I didn't have it. Had a nice win rate, and then I just deleted it because I couldn't play it the way it was supposed to be played. Got way too confusing. The Runish Kraken. Of course, this is Rune 42's version. I can't remember all of the changes. Some of them are quite obvious though. Like, he has Bragian, he's taken out a Jotun, he's taken out a Root of the World. Oh my word, am I going to have to go backwards and forwards between the two decks? I am, aren't I? He's also got Odin Throne, but I don't own Odin Throne either. Yeah, you know what, let's just quickly do that then. Should have been better prepared. But I only decided to record this in the first place because I quite literally couldn't sleep. I'm actually optimistic. It's been 2 weeks of Valkyries. I'm sick to death of it. I'm actually excited. I actually want to play mythgard. Like, I'm really looking forward to it. I've got all these different decks to try out. And in the end, I just thought, let's just throw it all out there. Let's just record it all, empty my head, and then maybe I can sleep. I don't know. It's great that the game gets me this excited, though. I was getting a little bit scared because for a while, it felt like it was getting really, really stale. And I'm hoping I'm going to jump into ranked and be like, oh yeah, this is what I'm talking about. Now we're back. Oh yeah, okay. So yeah, brass bouncer, dashing master. Okay, yeah. Okay. I've got it. Right, my Kraken. I'm pretty sure I made this before I had some of the cards. I then made the mythics, but I forgot to put the mythics back in. So I'm missing the necklace. I really don't think that's a massive deal. I've got 2 roots of the world instead to double the chance of picking up root of the world. Of course, picking up the necklace gives you an artifact, but it also allows you to instantly get your copy of root of the world if you need it, whenever you need it, pretty much, as long as you've got the artifact out on the field. It's arguably a lot more useful. Yeah, I don't have Bob, obviously. Nothing I can really do about that. I've mostly just doubled down on the things that I could double down on. So, oh yeah, also I don't have, um, Jotun in at all. Like, I don't like Jotun, honestly. I looked at the deck, and after I read the Error Bear article about Turbo, frames, I was like, oh yeah, like Jotun's actually a great card and it makes sense in his deck. It only costs 1 blue gem, which is really valuable, but it's a mana sink and you get a great 6/6 body with overrun out of it. When I made this though, I was not thinking about that because I'm a fool. You can see stuff like I've got, instead of having the Jotuns, I've got 2 Wonder Drugs here. I've fattened out the top end instead of having Bob. I've still got one brass bouncer. We'll see how that goes. I'm not really too sure. Obvious stuff, I've got my Cerberus in there. At this point, maybe it's just becoming a trademark. I don't have Chimera, so Cerberus seems to be in all of my decks. It's also the way that I got into Champion, you could argue. Like, it's the last attack needed to get me into Champion, you could say. Okay, so Cruel TK itself. Um, Basically, what happened is I've got the original, which is always true. I've got to stop resetting the records, but I keep changing the deck, so I reset the records to try and get an accurate idea of the actual deck, how the current iteration is doing. I've got the standard Cruel TK orange. It doesn't seem to be doing great. This meta is really terrible. Like, even before this Valkyrie meta and this aggro meta, all the things that we're seeing right now, I was openly saying in the Cruel TK playlist that yellow-green struggles against Valkyrie. It's one of the worst matchups. We really don't enjoy that matchup. Krultek is still playing his version. His version is extremely similar to this. He's got a couple of differences. He's got Baba Yaga's Den. He's got Pillage in there. He's just done like a couple of tune-ups, just make it slightly faster. He's winning with it, but I really think that's Krultek at this point. I don't think that's the average player, and I don't think we could do it. Not in this meta. Yellow-green is really strong. I still think it's a great deck, but the meta is just not right for it. So what I've done is just a bunch of different experiments. I kind of wish this one wasn't in the middle, just for neatness' sake. So you've got Cruel TK red, green, orange. So basically what's happened here is I've taken out the yellow, I've put red in. In some ways these are complex, big changes, but they're also very, very simple. Instead of playing with yellow, I've tried to replicate yellow with red cards instead. So in the yellow, green, orange list, what specifically is yellow giving us? It's given us a lot of the card draw, it's given us that big top end, and it's given us a lot of our life, through Bay Many Fools or Wonder Drug. So I tried to replicate as close as possible with red, and then I had to look at the deck and say, to what degree is red capable of doing the things that yellow does? What direction does this deck need to go in consideration of what red can offer that yellow can't offer, and vice versa? So looking at the deck, you can see, red doesn't have any problems with card draw, honestly. So instead of the Wonder Drug and stuff like the IATQ, stuff like that, you've got the Panaceas in here, you've got Ica Feasts, you've got plenty of recursion, you've got Stairway to Hades, Oak, you've got surprising amounts of card draw. Red more than makes up for the card draw side of things. On the other hand, though, red does not quite have, the Sapo or the twins, where you're getting fantastic value in the same way. On the other hand, you do have Stairway to Hades, which is giving you fantastic value, although it's slightly greedy in its own way. Red is almost like, as it gets higher, it stays low. Like in terms of attack, it stays low. So considering what it's offering, the direction the deck needed to go in is, okay, this is not a yellow-green control deck, obviously. It needs to be faster. When you put red in here instead of yellow, what you end up with is a more mid-range style deck. So we've got the Fated Firebird, Benediction, Abomination, as we normally would. I say normally would, with red-green. Fated Firebird, of course, for the control matchup. Boneyard, Abomination, Benedictions as well. Control matchups. But we've also got stuff like, of course, the Rush packages. We've got Strigoi Pup to go along with the Panacea, which seems a little bit strange. But we needed to get more life gain in there, because Ica Feast means that we're getting the card draw that we would have got with yellow to some degree. We've definitely got the card draw in here, but the actual life gain in red isn't as easy to put in unless you deliberately try and put it in. That sounds a bit strange, but in yellow you would put in Wonder Drug almost without thinking about it, and you would get a lot of your life gain just like that. You get card draw and life gain just like that, super easily. In red, you can make a red list and accidentally not put in a lot of life gain without really meaning to. But I think the combination of Extract Life, Strigoi Pup, Oak of the Donor gives a lot of easy, incidental, I'd say, life gain. You know, you're going to be picking up life throughout very, very easily, I think. Also, Panacea. I don't really like to say that Panacea's life gain specifically. Panacea does a whole lot of things, but your opponent can definitely play with it, and it can get really awkward if your opponent just decides not to engage with Panacea at all. Get really frustrating. And it has the same issue that Icavese does, where if you're low enough, this is actually worse than Dead Konyan. This is just a risk. Like, you might accidentally put yourself into lethal range. But it's a valuable lesson to learn from, but really not great. So, in summary, what does red give us that yellow doesn't? Well, we're going to have to play the deck really to definitively find out. But when I transplanted one colour with the other, what I really felt like, we're missing wide clear. Gigantomachia to some degree covers sort of mass wide tall clear, I suppose you could say. Things like that. Gigantomachia is definitely a fantastic card. So what we need to do, because we don't have the misanthropias, is we need to be able to fight in early game a little bit more. Yellow-green doesn't really fight, and it doesn't need to. You know, it can play the collar box and the mazes and so on, because then, you know, it's got misanthropias coming in. You know, it's got mass clearances, it's got Soleas, it's got ways of your opponent having a board and then it just resetting the entire board and saying, well, you've got a life advantage now. You've been hitting me in the face for 3, 4, 5 turns, but now the board is reset and we're both at, you know, 6, 7, 8 mana, and my deck is really heavy. So you better get ready because now it's my turn. Red can't do that. Definitely not in the same way. Because of we don't have the misanthropia. We have no choice really but to fight, which is to a large degree why Strigoi Pup is in here. Because we need to be able to fight in the early game to some degree. We can't allow opponents to have a big board. I think in some degrees it might be great or it might be bad. I'm still not definitively sure yet until we really play it, especially against Valkyries. Because Strigoi Pup, Daring Trapezists, takes out, you know, a Valkyrie Tough, which is not great, but we're just talking about dulling the edge, because Ingrid is broken and is extremely, extremely annoying, but Ingrid is still only 1 mythic, and you can't shoot at her very easily. So she's at the bottom of the deck, and a lot of times she's not going to, you know, be in the hand of the Valkyrie player. That is the truth, realistically. When she's in there, it is complete BS, and it's so frustrating, it's stupid. I'm sick to death of it. But most of the time, Ingrid is only 1 mythic card in 40 cards. So, and Valkyries, you don't really need to wipe them off the board early game. You just need to slow them down. Yellow-green arguably can't slow them down, but red really can. You know, Extract Life, Strigoi Pup, Trapezists. We actually have, you know, wings as well, Magmatar. We have ways of just pinging them off, taking parts of the Valkyrie off, just enough that they can't horn and finish us. You know, just enough that there's only maybe 1 or 2 Valkyries on the field, not 3 or 4, and we just die. Stairway to Hades is, of course, for the control matchup again. Also, but we also have a lot of mid-range. I actually really like this. I mean, red-green is a very well-balanced colour. They sort of cover each other very, very well. I don't have any Raid the Tombs, which I think is crazy. But I'm sort of taking a risk with it because I want to see specifically what happens. I think we've still got a lot of card draw in this deck, and Bald Mountain also offers us recursion on all of our spells, and a lot of our spells are offering us recursion or massive effects. We've got 13 spells in the deck, and you know, with stuff like Traitorous Murmur in there and Extract Life, that's a massive deal. We'll have to see what happens. So that is red-green. I haven't really talked about cool TK Orange. That's because I've got a whole playlist on TK Orange. All we really need to say is, you know, this is the skeleton, and then all of these just came from that. So that is Cruel TK Red, Green, Orange. I've also got Cruel TK Yellow, Red, Orange. It's exactly the same thing. I think it's a fascinating experiment. Instead, and because I played yellow-red, I'm trying to supplant the red into my yellow-green because those are now the three colours that I have the most experience with at a high level. Playing yellow-green, playing yellow-red. Now I'm trying to see what happens when I try and play my yellow-green control deck with aspects of red. So, of course, this is yellow-red, but this is very, very different to the NKL list. This, again, is quite literally me starting with the yellow-green Cruel TK list, the orange, and then taking out green completely, and then trying to replicate what green does with what red does, and then taking a step back from the deck and saying, right, what is red capable of doing that is an effective substitute for what green does? What does green do that red can't do? How am I going to try and create a deck that takes advantage of what red can do and doesn't make us suffer too much for missing stuff that green does? So of course green has a lot of the recursion. We were just talking about Bald Mountain. In fact, we're getting our spells back. Stuff like Traitorous Murmur is actually a big deal. We're also missing stuff like Ikuturso, Short Stag. It's a real shame. Collarbock as well. When you flip the deck over and instead red has to try and cover for green, what you're covering instead is sort of the same things that the red is covering in the yellow, but instead it's more what you try in the end. Instead of trying to replicate green, I had to go, right, well, what does red do that green can't do? How can I make this a viable deck? Honestly, it's just the synergy between yellow and red. There's a reason that the NKL deck is so good. There's a reason that yellow-red control is so good. There's a reason that lasers, Lord of the Rings is a good deck. It's because yellow and red have a surprising amount of synergy that I never really appreciated before. And I've tried to go for my own variation here. But stuff like, the Panaceas are still here, Trapezist, Ica except this time, what you've got is the combination. Yellow is giving you the Misanthropia, and it's giving you the Wonder Drugs. It's giving you that wide board clear. And red is also giving you the spot ping removal. It's giving you more life. It sort of jumps on what yellow does, and then it synergizes so well with it. They really support each other, and the deck goes really strongly in a particular direction. There's just enough rush in here. Red Carnival is sort of a small experiment of mine, but it's so easy to just ping stuff off all over the place. I think Red Carnival is going to be quite good. I don't know how good because I don't think it has great synergy with Blight. That's the problem, is casting Blight on all their stuff and then putting Red Carnival under one of your minions. Their stuff dies on their turn. That's a problem. Red Carnival is most effective on your turn when you can start forcing trades around it. But we'll have to see. But yeah, Misanthropia and Gigantomachia in its own way isn't perfect because of course it's only 3 cards. If you could play 4 of each, maybe play 4 of each. That sounds crazy. But the 2 cards between them cover your opponent's ability to go wide and your opponent's ability to go tall. Anything wide gets Misanthropia. Anything that's tall gets Gigantomachia. Anything that's wide and tall can get Gigantomachia or Misanthropia. In terms of spot removal, you've got Sapo, of course. You've got an amazing amount in here. The card draw as well. Ica Feast and Wonder Drug also have this interesting synergy. Not exactly interesting, it's sort of obvious, of course, but if your opponent deliberately tries to get you down to like 9-10 health and keep you out of that 8 range, you can Ica Feast and then Wonder Drug, and the Ica Feast makes you lose 3 life. You go beneath 9 life. As soon as you go to 8 life or lower, Wonder Drug then gives you an additional 4 life and an extra card. So for 6 mana, your opponent can't play around that. Like Yellow Reds has a combination of cards. It's so difficult to play around. That's for 6 mana, but even on 7 mana, it's a little bit silly, but it also really is not. You can straight Panacea plus Ica Feast to take yourself down by 5 health, then Wonder Drug to go up 8 health. So you're plus 3 health with a blocker on that's offering you another 4 health eventually. And you are plus 5 cards, plus another card from the Panacea when it gets destroyed, which is a crazy play if you're allowed to do that. If your opponent lets you do that, that's ridiculous. It's very hard for your opponent to not let you do that. Your opponent can't stop you from Wonder Drug when you play yellow-red. It's only a question of how badly do you want a Wonder Drug, how much mana are you willing to spend, how dead a turn are you willing to have. And if you do pull it off, then it goes without saying, your hand is loaded, and then you start putting down threat after threat after threat, and your opponent just can't deal with it. I'm not sure how the deck is going to go, but I hope that I've explained sufficiently the difference between what happens when you supplant green with red in the yellow-green, and what happens when you supplant yellow with red in the yellow-green orange Cruel TK deck. These are different. Cruel TK Go and Cruel TK Go. This is, instead of playing yellow, green, orange, this is just, well, let's do a similar experiment to red, but let's just play it with orange. Orange is still the strongest colour, in my opinion. Tempest has a mono orange deck that he plays at the highest levels. I've tried, but I've already said that my orange collection isn't great. I'll have to see how it goes. I've already explained what I tried to do with these, but we also have to talk about weaknesses of orange that I didn't really appreciate before. When I supplanted yellow with orange, I suddenly realised that, I love Perry at the Gates. I think it's so much better than Revelation of Shemek. I think Shemek is unplayable in some deck lists. I just don't like it at all. Perry at the Gates, obviously, so much more. It's pretty great. But in terms of healing, orange just, I never really noticed before. But they don't have any fantastic healing options in orange. Not really, But what it does have is, incredible value cards, incredible stuff like, instead of Volition, of course, you've got Mandatory Vigor. It also draws a card. I don't think it's that, the -2 isn't that relevant. I talked about it before with Abomination, but if your Abomination's, at 10 attack, then taking it down to 8 probably isn't that big a deal. Dire Benediction. There's a lot of stupid stuff. There are a lot of silly combos. Also, 2 lots of Seal of Exile. Really effective against so much stuff. It's a little bit ridiculous. Temptation as well. Temptation is a fantastic counter to the blue-red that I was talking about. Also to Valkyries to some degree. But anything that gets buffed, Temptation, that minion, offers you at least a 1-for-1 and a health swing. You could argue to some degree. Because of course as soon as it gets bounced back to their hand, it loses any enchantments that were put on it, any auras that were put on it. So you've at least destroyed one of their cards. And of course, because you stole the minion, if you attack them to the face, you've dealt damage to their face, which means that Temptation can also be a finisher. Or you can trade the minion into another minion, and then you've managed to get a 3-for-1, which is fantastic. You've destroyed 2 minions plus the aura on one of those minions. Or if the minion is ephemeral, then you've got 2. Anyway, yeah, long story short, Temptation is pretty great, especially in this meta right now. There is a lot of fantastic stuff in this deck. I think a lot of it's really greedy. I just want to try it out. I don't know about 2 Dire Benedictions, 2 Mandatory Vigors. I think that's really greedy. Also 2 Seal of Exiles. I think it's quite greedy. I'm not really sure about Herald of Famine either. I was looking at it sort of like, well, it's a 3/5 for 4 mana. I really don't think it's that bad. The ability is quite good. If you can get out early, the free damage actually stacks up. Is really inconvenient. Your opponent needs to get it off the board. They can't leave it around. That's ridiculous. Just burning twice is 6 damage. I don't need to explain the maths. The maths is pretty obvious. It's pretty crazy. Also, stuff like Sign of Pride means you can Temptation something, and then after you've done whatever, you can transform it. If it gets transformed, it doesn't bounce back to the hand. Sign's an amazing card anyway. It's one of the best cards in the game. Absolutely fantastic. What do we lose by having orange instead of yellow? The healing is the big issue, really. Also, the card draw is not quite as great. You've got Perry at the Gates and Mandatory, which is kind of as good as you're going to get. But it meant that my green had to compensate for that. So I put in 3 copies of Sugar Plum Fairy, and I had to flatten things instead, which is a little bit unfortunate. But I didn't see any other way. Where is the healing in this deck? I tried the best I could. Apparently, one of the few weaknesses that orange has is in terms of healing, and green isn't amazing at healing. So 3 lots of Sugar Plum Fairies. Did the best I could. I'm not that, I'm not too worried about Mass Clear. It sounds a little bit It's not as great as in stuff like red-orange, because red-orange, the combination Shadowvar Beast and Magmatar makes it so difficult for your opponent to group up. So your opponent can't really go too wide, and you can really fight them over it. Your opponent can definitely go wide. This isn't perfect, you know, you really are missing the stuff like Wonder Drugs and Misanthropias, the stuff that Yellow's offering the very best. But Sapo, you're not missing quite as much. You've got so much spot removal all over the place. Armageddon Angel is still a fantastic clear, and it offers you the body afterwards. Orange is fantastic. We'll have to see. Like I said, the healing is really something I'm struggling with though. And Cruel TK Yo, which is, I mean, I suppose you could say it's Aztec control. You know, yellow green, except there's no green. Orange instead. Not quite as bad. You know, you now got the mask. You can understand why Aztec control is more of a thing than green orange is. I think green is a more balanced color, but the more I look at these deck lists and what you can do with the colors, it seems like yellow is a stronger color somehow, even though I think green is a more balanced color. Green really seems to need red to like balance it out, but even then, yellow has a very fantastic synergy. All the colours have really interesting synergies. I mean, mythgard's a fantastic game. Yeah, there are so many different complex interactions. Rather embarrassingly though, I mean, maybe it's just a weakness in my collection, or it's a weakness in my ability to analyse what orange is capable of offering me, but the actual orange in Yo and Go are pretty much the same. But I think the things that are in are just such, I don't want to say bombs, but so fantastic, you know. The only thing that I'm not like super over the moon about is Eager Recruit, and it's more just, you know, we've got the mazes, we've got the effigies, Eager Recruit as well, just so we can fight a little bit early game. We can sort of fight, I mean, it's not quite enough to fight Valkyries, but you know, that's what the temptations in the Seal of Exiles are for, that's what the Sign of Pride is for. So we can start fighting Valkyries until eventually we get to our Misanthropias, of course. Wonder Drugs to keep us going. Haha. Well, we'll get back to this. That's sort of the end. Tempest was playing this. I had to make changes. I don't have all the cards. He has Pseudonomicon. This is sort of a more typical green-red deck list. It has the things that you would expect in a green-red Fires of Creation deck list. He has the Trident, which of course means Dash and Ringmaster. 4 Matryoshka, stuff like that, Somerset. There's a lot in here that I haven't played before, and I'm quite excited to try it out, just because there are cards that I haven't really played enough, and I probably can't appreciate enough, if you know what I mean. Like, I may be looking over cards just because I haven't played them to enough of a level that I can correctly assess how good they would be in certain decks. So I'm passing them up when I really shouldn't be. So I'm quite looking forward to playing this deck. I'm not crazy about it, but we already have so many decks to play. This is, you see what I mean? Like, this is just insane. And I think a lot of these have, like, as I'm talking about these, a lot of these have genuine chances against Valkyries. Like, I can see ways in which they offer genuine competition, even with Valkyries being BS and, you know, Ingrid just being so rubbish. You know, Turbo Kraken is a genuine shot. And I'm not quite sure how our yellow-green is going to do, but we're going to give it a good go. And the main god. This is the second Kish deck, and one of the best things about this season, because for 4 months, we've been wanting to play Kish decks, and Kish loves purple, and our purple collection is abysmal. But Animating Gods is something that he posted about quite literally today in Discord, saying, I don't know why people aren't playing Animating God in this meta. It's really, really good. And, you know, I went on Mythgard Hub. I decided to check up on it, see if there was any sort of hashed out make I could create. I'm still not, like, looking at it. You know, there's stuff like Clarion in here that I'm like, what in the world? You know, Ghoul. I can understand the Ghoul, to be honest. I can understand the Ghoul. But there are things that you don't see a lot of. Also, 2 Seal of Exiles, only 1 Temptation. Maybe in this meta you switch that around. I'm not quite so sure. You know, Spear of Destiny. Stuff that I haven't played since I played Min-Max's Red Orange Carnival list ages ago. But apparently this is really, really good in the meta, and I actually have all the cards for it, including Herald of Conquest, which I just got from opening the Noah packs. So that was fantastic timing. Herald of Conquest was apparently the last mythic that I needed to complete this set. I still don't know how to play it, and it's a Disc of Sakardia deck, which is the path that I want to learn the most, but that's because I'm most uncomfortable with it, and I'm not sure if I could play it for a whole season. But I think if I get to champion and I have a little bit of time at the end of the season, I would definitely be trying a lot of this, because I'd be considering trying to make it next season with Disc of Sakardia. This season, though, I think it's going to be all about the Kraken for sure. Single-minded. I've only played 3 matches, only one of them against a human, but I think a sample size of 1 is absolutely fun. There's no secrets about this deck really. Like, once you see it, it's obvious what I'm trying to do with it, and the actual distribution is crazy. We only have 1 card at 6 or higher, and the only cards we have at 5 are Magmatar, Stairway to Hades, and to Heaven and Back. So in some ways it is a value town deck, in so much as, you know, the whole point is that it's low, and then it's just the incredible amount of recursion that you're getting from Hades and to Heaven and Back that is giving you the ability to just keep going. Like, that engine just keeps going and going and going. This is my version, and it quite literally is single-minded. The whole idea is, because everything is so low, I decided to build around, well, if our opponent ever does reach a point where they can put big things down, I should have put seal in here, but I didn't need it. That's the crazy thing, is I don't want to seal things, apart from maybe 7-ring ritual. But yeah, instead I've got imperfect copy, and the whole reason that imperfect copy is in here, in some ways it's almost like an abomination deck. You know, I've got the vigor in here, I've got the benediction in here. In some way, this deck, I can't help but grin when I'm looking at this deck list. It's so ridiculous. It's such a stupid deck list. But you know, I've got stuff like red carnivals in here, you know. And the whole point about the red carnival, of course, is if our opponent is not careful, we can very easily have something on a red carnival and then imperfect copy it. And if you red carnival something and then 2 monsters, you know, clash on the other end of the field, that is a +4 to the monster. So even if the monster was a +1/+1, that makes it a 5/5. So if I copy it, that then becomes, you know, a 5/5 for 4 mana. And, you know, that's the worst possible example. Of course, and if your opponent puts down a massive minion, you can just imperfect copy it. You put down a Sapo, then you imperfect copy it. Now their Sapo and your copy are exactly the same size. Ikuturso, imperfect copy it. Slightly more of a problem because, of course, Ikuturso normally goes right in front of something, so you can't then put your copy in front of it and force it to fight it. But still, I mean, you imperfect copy, your opponent is quite literally giving you the tools to kill them. You know, if they put down something that's 5 mana or less and they start buffing it, temptation, they're hurting themselves. Someone's like, why are you hitting yourself? We have enough rushdown in here. We've also got the packs in here. We've got the extract lives in here. We've got all 3 copies of Crimson Packs, all 2 copies of extract life. So we've got a lot of spot removal. All we really need is, you know, stuff like Daring Trapezist, Muse down. They can do it already. Panic Raiders in here, of course, because it can actually kill itself, which is very helpful with Red Carnival if I really need it. Oak of Dodona, sort of to feed off Red Carnival, but just because Oak of Dodona is so great. Wings of Abaddon, again, it can just kill stuff really, really easily. To some degree, that's why we have the Panaceas in here as well. They're there to die, you know. It revolves around Red Carnival, it revolves around Imperfect Copy. We've got 2 different ideas. So far it's working, but it's just silly. Like, in terms of playable 1-drops, we have 3 cards. We have 3 straight Panaceas at the 1. That's it. Those are the only 3 cards we can put down on our first turn, if we even draw them. In terms of gems, it's quite intensive as well, especially on the red side. But I mean, it's skewed towards red anyway, so we'll see. It's almost like a YE so, but it makes me grin. So far, I've had fun with it. I don't think it's really a viable deck. but it's so stupid. It's absolutely so ridiculous, and made me laugh. It's just this was just me losing my mind. I was like, okay, well, that imperfect copy thing was a great idea. How about we take that imperfect copy thing? Because the vessel you get is only 1 mana, it doesn't really work with Ringmaster, unfortunately. So I took the red out. But I kept the imperfect copy, you know, the Vigors, the Dire Benedictions. But then I put Boneyard Abomination in here because it's only 4 mana. And I put Frecky sidecars in it. So it's very possible, if your opponent puts down anything remotely big, you can imperfect copy it and then Frecky sidecar. And the vessel only costs 1 mana. So for 4 mana, you can immediately smack them with whatever they've just put down. Like whatever gigantic monster they just put down, you can then smack them with it. And in late game as well, Boneyard Abomination, Frecky sidecar, or just Boneyard Abomination, imperfect copy. You know, and then you've got the Vigors and the Dire Benedictions. So in some ways, it's like a Boneyard Abomination replication deck, also combined with Stop Hitting Yourself. The whole idea is, you know, again, like this goes up to 4. The highest we've got is Allfather's Horn. If you don't take into account the Allfather's Horn, though, the highest mana in this deck is 4 mana. This deck is so low, you know, but it should be able to start. It should be able to start. I mean, this is more ridiculous than the deck that I was playing. It even has Grinning Collarbock in. I don't even know why. It just makes sense. Like quickly ramping up super fast. To give yourself the mana, but also because Collarbox die quite easily, but they give you the mana ramp. So I can get to Abomination really quickly if I need it. I can get to Imperfect Copy really quickly if I need it. And then, you know, I mean, the mana to some degree. The reason I need the Collarbox, I didn't explain that very well. So I don't know why they're in. They're in because I need them for the card draw. Because of Boneyard Abomination, I don't really want Raid the Tombs in here. So I've got Perry at the Gates, and I've got all 4 copies of Brainstorm. Because it's only 1 blue gem, I'm sort of envisioning an early game, which is pretty much Eager Recruits and Collarbox. Collarbox give us enough ramp that if we've just got 1 or 2 blue gems, we can just spam our Brainstorms really super quick. Our Overkills really super quick. And the whole idea is that it just makes the deck really thin, you know? Brainstorms is immediately thinning down the deck, you know. So the actual workable parts of the deck that I'm talking about are Sidecar, Horn, and Abomination, Vigor, Dire Benediction, Imperfect Copy. Those are the pieces that we're really talking about. Everything else around it is either a value piece that is just too good not to put in, such as Sign of Pride, stuff like Temptation, Seal of Exile, that buy us time or eliminate big threats. Also, it's capable to imperfect copy something and then just seal it away forever, or, you know, even tempt it to your side, so you've got 2 copies. You know, so many different things. I should probably have Traitorous Murmur in here, but Traitorous Murmur is 6 mana, which is way too expensive for this deck. This is like some sort of super crazy, ridiculous, stupid deck, and I want it to work so badly. There are still parts of the deck that I'm not 100% sure about. You know, like I have the Sugar Plum Fairies in here because I'm not even sure where health is coming from in this deck. It's not a hang on deck. It's quite literally they put down something big. Well, we've got a lot of easy answers to that, and if we don't, we can dig for it super easily. You know, we've got the Troika Sect and the Pillage, just in case they start bringing out the artifacts, because I think Fire's Creation would be sort of a counter to this deck. Troika Sect and Pillage buys us just about enough time. We can actually start doing genuine things, which I think is excellent. But there's so much card draw, and the whole point is that it just cycles, and the effective size of the deck is only, you know, 25 cards or so. The other 15 cards are just thinner, you know, they're just there to get us to the relevant cards that we actually need. So I'm not quite sure about making me up. It's so ridiculous. 4 mana being the height. Although having said that, you know, people have made crazier decks. You know, Kish made a deck where the highest mana thing was 3 mana or something before. Something like that. But we have so much here. I'm actually optimistic. I think some of it has reasonable matchups against Valkyries. I think we can climb with it. I finally have the pieces for Turbo Kraken. I'm probably going to play it standard, but I'm also going to play the Runish Kraken just to try and appreciate the differences. I think that would be good game knowledge that we could then carry further into other seasons. Yeah, this is it though. In a lot of ways, this feels like the start of the season. It took us long enough. You know, 2 weeks in, we're unranked. We haven't played a single ranked match. We played a lot of casual, and you know, I don't know how it's going to go. I mean, my records, I don't have any bad records actually. You know, I guess I'm just, we're also better this season. How can we not get champion? I don't know. Amber Control 25-4. Maybe I should just play Amber Control. Well, at some point I should play Amber Control in rank to find out how good it is as a heat check of the meta, I suppose. I was waiting for the expansion, but I don't want to wait for the expansion anymore. I'm excited. This is going to be it. I'm going to start playing ranked games. Let's start. Beta Season 3, here we come.